Beyond the shape of President Obama's second-term administration and who's in his cabinet, we now know that President Obama has scheduled a major meeting for tomorrow in Washington with labor leaders. So that'll be on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, the president is going to be meeting with a lot of CEOs, with business leaders. Now, obviously, the world of big business, in some ways large and small, chose Mitt Romney over President Obama during this election season. They made their choice early and loudly and publicly and put a ton of money behind Mr. Romney. And it did not work. Their guy did not win. President Obama got reelected anyway. And there presumably is some sort of political reckoning for that, which presumably will start this Wednesday at that meeting at the White House. If not a reckoning, then at least a turn of the page. The White House is signaling that the president actually wants to enlist business leaders in his effort to end the Bush-era tax cuts for income over $250,000 and for a spending deal to go along with that plan. The president wants the business community to bring their political capital to bear on an effort that they might actually get something in return for. The White House characterizing their plans as a deal that would actually help bring down the deficit, but without destroying the economic recovery and the middle class along with it. It should not come as a surprise that President Obama is pushing hard on ending the Bush tax cuts for income over $250,000. That's probably been the president's most consistent, most repeated promise on policy. I mean, here's what he said about the Bush tax cuts on high income right as he was agreeing to extend those tax cuts back in 2010.
I'm as opposed to the high-end tax cuts today as I've been for years. In the long run, we simply can't afford them. And when they expire in 2 years, I will fight to end them.
Even as he was agreeing to extend those tax cuts that time, the president was promising right there that he would not do it again. In April of last year, he went one step further. He issued an ultimatum.
In December, I agreed to extend the tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans because it was the only way I could prevent a tax hike on middle-class Americans. But we cannot afford $1 trillion worth of tax cuts for every millionaire and billionaire in our society. We can't afford it. And I refuse to renew them again.
The president in April of last year saying he will refuse to renew the Bush tax cuts for the highest levels of income again. This has not been a secret. During election season, the president campaigned on ending the Bush tax cuts for the wealthy, both in TV ads and out on the stump. Every speech, all the time, it was a central pillar of his campaign message. And then after he won re-election on Tuesday, resoundingly, in his first public comments after election night, the first thing the president said was that he was going to end those Bush tax cuts on high income.
I'm not going to ask students and seniors and middle-class families to pay down the entire deficit while people like me making over $250,000 aren't asked to pay a dime more in taxes. I'm not going to do that.
And now, just in case it wasn't clear enough, the Obama administration is floating the idea that the president may very well barnstorm the country in support of this idea that he has been declaring since 2010. But it's not clear that he needs to, frankly. Republicans already seem to be caving on this issue in ways, at least small ways, at least starting to cave, at least thinking about caving, at least sniping at each other about the possibility of caving. And if the Republicans don't cave, the president and the Democrats do have the option of just letting all of the Bush tax cuts expire. That is what is set to happen automatically, and they seem willing to let that happen. They can always sort of fix it retroactively before the end of the tax year. So what else is in the realm of possibility right now for the Democrats? I mean, don't forget the president's meeting with labor leaders tomorrow. That happens before he makes his case to the CEO. Here's what the CEOs that he's going to meet with on Wednesday, excuse me. Here's what's on AFL-CIO President Richard Trumka's mind as he heads into tomorrow's meeting. Mr. Trumka has been reminding the press that in Ohio, AFL-CIO members are 83% white, 40% are evangelicals, 53% of them own guns, and they voted 70% for Barack Obama. Labor knows exactly how important it was to the president's reelection effort, particularly in the swing states. What about labor law reforms? What about making the marketplace more attractive to unions and union membership? Mitt Romney ran against President Obama as if the president had already put in place big, sweeping labor law changes. But the Obama administration really did not affect major change in labor law in the first term. There are still lots of things left on the labor agenda, like a bill to make it easier for unions to get recognized and harder for companies to block unions from forming. Could labor reforms be in the realm of possibility in the second-term Obama administration? Or how about this? Yesterday, when the president spoke on veterans issues at Arlington National Cemetery, he touched on something that certainly should be in the realm of possibility for his second term: the sometimes months-long backlog that our new veterans are facing when they try to access the benefits they have earned when they get home from war.
No veteran should have to wait months or years for the benefits that you've earned, so we will continue to attack the claims backlog. We won't let up. We will not let up.
Yes, that claims backlog is actually a disaster, and it's getting worse, and it needs to be fixed. It is a very specific problem that cannot be allowed to continue if we are to make good on the promises that we've made to people who fought in our name. And it is on the president to get it done. And if his VA secretary, Eric Shinseki, cannot get it done as head of the VA, then probably the president needs to find a new second-term VA secretary. Fixing the veterans' claims benefit backlog is something that needs to be in the realm of possibility for the Obama administration in its second term. Later on in the show tonight, we're going to be talking about how and where the actual election is still happening, where the election is still a great big chaotic mess. Now members of Congress are proposing election reform at the federal level, legislation to set out uniform rules for early voting all across the country to make it so we don't have partisan administration in charge of elections. Real, meaningful, nonpartisan election reform could be in the realm of possibility for Democrats if they choose to work on that. Or how about this? On the Sunday shows yesterday, Republicans started to sound a little more conciliatory toward the idea of immigration reform, with Lindsey Graham, senator from South Carolina, going so far as to say, quote, "We have nobody to blame but ourselves when it comes to losing Hispanics. I intend to tear this wall down and pass an immigration reform bill that's an American solution to an American problem." The softening toward comprehensive immigration reform is even happening among some Fox News Channel personalities. Of course, not on Fox News Channel, but on the Fox News hosts' radio shows, which they call sotto voce. But still, it's happening. So immigration reform may be more within the realm of possibility in the near term than it has been for a very long time. Last week, on Thursday, 2 days after the election, Mark Kelly, the husband of former Arizona Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, made a statement at the sentencing hearing of the man who shot Gabby Giffords and 18 other people January last year outside a Tucson supermarket. Mr. Kelly's statement included a poignant call for a restoration to sanity on gun policy in this country, for at least a return to what used to be the gun laws in America. Quote, "We have a political class that is afraid to do something as simple as have a meaningful debate about our gun laws and how they are being enforced. As a nation, we've repeatedly passed up the opportunity to address this issue. After Columbine, after Virginia Tech, after Tucson, after Aurora, we have done nothing. In this state, meaning Arizona, we've elected officials so feckless in their leadership that they would say, as in the case of Governor Jan Brewer, 'I don't think it has anything to do with the size of the magazine or the caliber of the gun.' She went on and said, even if the shooter's weapon had held fewer bullets, he'd have another gun maybe. He could have had 3 guns in his pocket." She said this just 1 week after a high-capacity magazine allowed you to kill 6 and wound 19 others before being wrestled to the ground while attempting to reload. He said that to the face of the man who shot his wife. So everyone says that gun law reform is impossible. But maybe at least fixing the expired assault weapons ban, that used to be sort of a consensus piece of legislation in the country, maybe that could at least be in the realm of possibilities for the second Obama administration term. On Friday, we found out that Jay Inslee won the Washington state governor's race. What's the thing that Governor-elect Jay Inslee is most known for in his whole legislative career up until this point? Clean energy, biotech. He's the pay attention to climate change guy. He's now governor of Washington state. Of course, today, Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York State, came out and said he will be asking for $30 billion for New York State in storm relief. That money would be in part to shore up New York's infrastructure so it can withstand storms of increased frequency and increased severity due to climate change. So while the new governor of Washington will be out trying to fight climate change, the governor of New York is also calling for action to make us more resilient so we can sustain ourselves in the face of damage that will happen on an increasingly frequent basis because of climate change. So who knows? Maybe even something like climate change, heading off further climate change and responding to what we've got already, maybe that could be in the realm of possibility for a second term. What about the things that we know the president wanted to accomplish in his first term? Things he specifically said he wanted to get done in his first term and he didn't do. What about closing Guantanamo? Remember once upon a time when that was the plan? Maybe that is back in the realm of possibilities in the president's second term. And hey, let's just go out on a wild hair here. What about ending the war in Afghanistan ahead of schedule? Could a second Obama term see the war ending earlier than we thought? What is within the realm of possibility now? What can Democrats achieve now that they could not have achieved before, say, last Tuesday? I mean, they can't run the table. There are still Republicans in Washington, and Republicans do still control the House. The world is not the Democrats' oyster right now, but just ask the Republicans. It's at least getting clammy, right? Democrats can't just do anything they want, but they have an opportunity right now to recast the realm of what is possible.